I mean, that's Daemon in a nutshell, right? Gets what he wants and doesn't know how to handle it. He can't even deal with Missaria.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Vassals of Kingsgrave for another edition of DragonCast, House of the Dragon. This is for episode 4, which just aired tonight, September 11th, which is called King of the Narrow Sea. My name is Adam, also known as drownedsnow on the forums, the Discord, and all the various things. And I am joined by a crew of dragons, mostly dragons. Let's see, let's start with you, Kevin.
Hello, I'm Kevin, Nuncle Kevin, unless you're actually my nephew, in which case you can call me Uncle Kevin, but you need to go to bed.
Okay. Michal?
Hi, I'm Michal, or Inkasrain, over on the internet, the place that is known as the internet.
Katie?
Hi, this is Katie. It's late. Bedtime.
Bing?
Hello. Once upon a time there was a Showshiner. Now it's just Bing.
Ben?
Hey, Ben, or King Jucio. Future 2-time trivia champion.
We're always looking for a future ex-trivia champion. Matt?
Got it.
All right. And back with us after a long time off the podcast is Stephanie.
Hey, gsdg.
And when was your last recording that you did?
Handmaid's Tale Season 2?
Yeah, that's right. That was it was a minute ago. Well, it's great to have you back. Let's do our lemon cake ratings of the episode. I know that we've gotten some criticism in the YouTubes for being too positive and enjoying the show too much. So let's see how it goes. All right. Let's since you haven't been on in a while, let's start with you, Stephanie.
I think I'd go with 4. I feel like, there's a lot of, this is middle of the season. We're, still, setting everything up. I take off one for the dagger because I do feel a little uncomfortable with how far they're pushing all the prophecy stuff, but I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt to see how far they'll go.
All right. And Kevin, for your first time on DragonCast this season, tell me what you think. We didn't get a lot of dragons.
Yeah, I was sent over from Wolfcast specifically to make this podcast less positive. And with that said, I'm going to give it a 4.5. So, yeah. No, I just thought this one was fun. They, some of the issues I had with episode 3 were that it was we didn't progress a lot with some of the storyline in King's Landing or on the hunt in episode 3. I thought there was good progress in this one character-wise, and we learned new things about these characters. There weren't a lot of dragons, but that's okay. It was a good character episode. I think the show is better. It's better with Daemon there. Until we get a wider world with more Targaryens and just more sort of people in the story. Daemon's one of the few people that kind of sparks characters, that's the word. One of the few characters that kind of sparks a lot of conflict and gets good reactions out of other people and brings out more in other characters, even if he is a total creep.
Yeah, and it's better when he actually speaks during the episode.
How dare you? That was wholesome uncle-niece bonding. Nothing more.
Leave it to Uncle Kevin, Nuncle Kevin. I'm sorry to disapprove. Let's move on.
The uncle does protest too much.
That's right. Bing, what did you think?
I'm sorry, YouTube. This episode fun. I think it's a 4.75. I don't know. It feels more like something out of MTV than HBO. but it's like a good kind of MTV. I don't know. It's lots of wacky hijinks and teenage drama. Yeah, it's fun stuff. Daemon is a force of chaos.
All right, yeah, MTV. I'll take that. At least you didn't say CW. Matt, you want to tell me what you think?
Yeah, sure. And I was tempted to give it a 5 for like the Moon Tea closer. That was awesome. It's probably closer to a 4.5 with the dagger nonsense and Rhaenyra and Alicent like still keeping like the masks on. Like I just want them to like let it drop and go for it. But fuck the haters. 5 out of 5.
All right, nice. Katie.
5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. I loved it. It actually like clicked a lot of things about Kristen Cole for me that I wasn't expecting it to do that. But yeah, I loved like the parallels of Alicent and Rhaenyra who's allowed to have all this fun, and Alicent who's kind of resigned herself to this life of cold duty, down to her looking up and seeing a rat crawling on the rafters of her bed. Yeah, I mean, it was horny and fun, and like everything is just so fucking good. Like I have no complaints whatsoever. Like even the dagger stuff, it doesn't particularly like bother me because like we talked about this in the premiere. It's like they're kind of when they're doing it's like a season of setup for like the actual conflict. Like they're trying to like find a hook for forward momentum, I guess, like or like larger stakes at hand. So I do not begrudge them the Ring of Power dagger reveal thing. It's fine with me. Oh, bonus points for that little Black Tree boy or Raven Tree boy who killed the fuck out of that bracken at the beginning. That was pretty sweet.
The Blackwood kid, yeah.
Yeah.
Ben, what'd you think?
I loved it. Probably a 4.5. I hate Dagger Talk. Dagger Talk is the worst part of any House of the Dragon episode, in my opinion. Stop with the Dagger Talk, and I'll be happy. Otherwise, I really enjoyed it. I thought the closing almost conversation between Rhaenyra and Viserys was really good. It was really honest, and it felt like the characters had been building to this for a while, like this like open honesty with each other. And I really enjoyed it. And I thought the Daemon stuff was pretty good. It was a little out of left field. Felt like maybe some setup, a bit more setup for him, like wanting to be the creep to her would have helped, but it's not that bad in my opinion. And then Kristen Cole, I really enjoyed the stuff with him because it felt like you could interpret his reluctance in a couple sort of ways, and I just enjoyed the ambiguity of that. So yeah, I really enjoyed the episode. It was a slower paced one, felt like a lot of setup for characters, and that's fine with me. Also, a return to got nudity in the like a lot of it, but it wasn't horrible per se.
Yeah, the brothel scene was done a bit differently than we've had in the past. They even addressed that actually after the show. Anyway, let's hear from you, Michal. What do you think?
I gotta admit, I was a little distracted. And also because a lot of the episode was like on the darker side visually, watching it in my bright den was basically a little bit like, oh cool, there's my face on the TV screen. So I thought it was really well done. It felt like a necessary explosion of physicality, I think. and maybe that was just because I know that these people are going to hook up, and I was like, I want to see this already. But I thought, the contrasts between like how into what she's doing Rhaenyra is, and what, how not into what she's doing Alicent is. The very weird experience of like the brothel scene, like that was, I feel like the lowest kind of place we've seen, certainly in King's Landing, and I thought that was very interestingly portrayed. I thought you could definitely tell that a woman shot this episode. I mean, not that all women would shoot it tastefully, but I thought it was shot particularly kind of with an interesting kind of almost shocked perspective, like you're Rhaenyra seeing this for the first time. Yeah, I don't know. It was also very interesting to see Rhaenyra have some agency in terms of getting Otto Hightower out of town. That I did not expect, because I don't think that's in the book. And it's annoying because right now I feel quite bad for Kristen Cole. And I'm like, he hasn't done anything wrong yet. And I need him to, so I can stop liking him. But yeah, I don't know. Good. It's yeah, I would probably have to watch this one again. But good episode overall. Pretty costumes for sure.
Yeah, I think this one's going to bear a second watch throughout the week. I think that, like Jucio said, we got a lot of payoff with some of the earlier episodes. Character conversations and moments were pretty good. I mean, seeing Otto Hightower put in his place, which was great. And it was even better after the episode, the actor was like, well, the king's just like so distracted, he doesn't realize Otto's right. I'm like, oh God. Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed it. I think I'd probably give this like a 4.5. I mean, like, I don't know, you can do a 5, but like I'll do 4.5 because the dagger stuff, maybe it shouldn't bother me, but it does. It's just because it takes me out of it. It makes me feel like this is for the show people to like connect them and blah blah blah. And I'm like, how the fuck does Arya end up with this dagger? If it's like the dagger of the kings, and like it probably shouldn't bother me. It's like a stupid like nerdy nitpick, but like if it was some other dagger or blade or something, it'd be like, oh, it's cool, and we have like the Gandalf moment with like the fires revealing the inscriptions and shit, and it's like, but I mean it also does fit. That's something that Robert would just sort of have lying around, not knowing what the fuck it was worth, or that Aerys the Mad King wouldn't realize either. So I mean, I guess it's fine,
Well, it also gives us a potential transmission beyond. They can now cut the chain at any time, and we will still know how, at least in the show, Rhaegar figured out.
Right.
The whole prophecy.
Right. The dagger could be the clue to yeah. I mean, it's convenient. It's not the worst thing. It just like, I guess I'm having flashbacks to like, it's like Rise of Skywalker. I think we joked about this a couple episodes, like, oh, they're gonna use the dagger. So I'm like, no, it's just a dagger. Nope. Sure enough, like the dagger's gonna lead her to the dragon horde or something with all the eggs. I don't know.
No, real talk. I cannot. I get it, dude. I cannot stand dagger talk. Anytime it's on screen, I'm like, I just roll my eyes.
But that was also such a good scene.
It was after the dagger talk went away.
So we'll get to that. I mean, a lot happened in this episode. Well, let's get into it now. From Rhaenyra getting cold-cocked to Otto being sent on his way. So let's see. Where did we start? Was this Storm's End? Rhaenyra, I thought she was
Storm's End. Yeah.
Okay, I thought she was holding court, and there's Baratheons there with her. So I thought this was King's Landing for a second somewhere, but the room didn't look right. And then when she gets on the ship, I'm like, oh, she must be out on her. She's like traveling the kingdom looking for a suitor. Is what at first I wasn't sure what was going on.
But then the Blackwoods and Brackens traveled that long to visit her when she's supposedly on tour. I'm not nitpicking about this. It didn't like really like affect.
Well, yeah, I'm like, if she's on tour, why are there 100 people here? I thought maybe, I don't know. They said they cut it short. I thought maybe it was like they were just doing this at Storm's End for fun. But I assume she was supposed to go other places. And when the Blackwood kid shows up, she's like, okay, fuck this shit. And I did love how, like, as she was leaving, Like he's like murdering somebody, and then
That
she
kid
just like
is a legend in
shakes
the
her head.
making.
Yeah,
I mean,
Well,
yeah,
that guy has a name, right? That's Benjicott.
Yeah.
no. That's Benjicot's dad. It's too
Is
early.
it his dad?
Yeah,
Okay.
because in Fire and Blood we get a passage about Sir Samwell Blackwood beating the heir to Stonehenge in a duel, but we don't know if that heir is Amos, who does go on to be important later on.
Huh. She's
Yeah, the
making a
Blackwood-
lot of
yeah.
she's making a lot of regrettable mistakes in this scene of like robbing the lords of their dignity. It's like you don't want to humiliate the people who you need to support you. It's like painful to watch.
Oh yeah, I was watching the last few, like especially the last episode, especially like with like the like the Lannister suitor and all the ladies of the Reach who were sitting with Alicent and just like being like really like like dismissive towards them. I'm just like, okay, just ticking off, just like, okay, they're not gonna like you, they're not gonna like you, they're not gonna like you,
It's how she goes about it too, right? Because it's like I think they all know they're a long shot to like get the princess, right? Like they know
Right.
it's cool. The idea of having like kids that ride dragons, they're all into that, but they know like nobody's like the favorite for this. Like no matter how prideful you are, you're like it's still gonna be tough. But she doesn't have to be like mean about it. Like she can say
Exactly.
their dignity.
It wouldn't have killed her to be polite, but
I mean, I
Yeah.
also think that none of these men approach, even though they know it's a long shot, none of them approach it like a long shot. I mean, maybe the actual child did, but like, I feel like this is a somewhat different situation than like, perhaps if I dance with the prince at the ball, he'll notice me. This is like, they're only trying because they think it's possible. So. And she's been going through that for a while, apparently.
No one there except for the Baratheon would be the lord of a great house, or like possibly you have some heirs there, right? Because otherwise you want them coming to you.
Like all the lords of the realm. Like...
Well, yeah, there was like Lord Dondarrion, who's an old man, was there. That's the first guy we get, and she kind of embarrasses him off the bat, which is pretty funny, not gonna lie. But also, she does it in a way that doesn't like let him save his dignity, and I think that's gonna come back to bite her in the end as she continues to do things in a kind of hammered towards glass way.
Yeah, this is what I think is unfortunate. What I've said, all season and especially last episode is like Rhaenyra needs wins in the show. Like even in this episode, like later at the play, they talk about she's the realm's delight, but like they haven't shown us anything that like she's really done where people are like, "Hey, Rhaenyra," right? She just continually ignores people and is kind of, hiding, and like, everyone wants the boy to be king instead of her, and they have to do something to like show why, half the realm is going to side with her at some point, and they're not doing that yet, and it's kind of weird.
agreed.
But I mean, maybe we'll get there with the time skip, or in the next episode or something. Because they have all this, they're still setting her up as a young girl. But like, how many years has it been now? Let's see, she'd be like 20 maybe, or right?
Aegon is like 3. I think like I guess that's little baby Aemond. He's like so he should be like 1.
So she's like 18 or 19. Yeah.
Is Helena older than Aemond?
I think it
Helena's
is
older.
Helena. Yeah.
Yeah, Helena is supposed to be older than Aemond. Yeah.
Although they could mix that around. There's all kinds of stuff they could do here. Play fast and loose. I'm kind of surprised as much as they are including when they have to get through stuff so quickly. And I was kind of surprised last episode where, they suggested that he marry Laenor Velaryon, and he didn't even bring that up. He's like, just go find you a man. And then, here we get here, and he's like, okay, we're done with that. So I guess it makes sense.
Well, it could also be a test of like rulership for Rhaenyra, right? Of like he's like making her own the process. One, he doesn't want to deal with it. Two, but like this would be like an opportunity for like a shrewd person to actually demonstrate their acumen by making a good choice, but at the same time, it's just like
right.
All of the more highly born houses either made their suit already, or they're taken, or they're like, or like Laenar Valerian's off in the Stepstones and he's not back yet.
Right. I feel like her realistic options, you could probably count on your fingers, and she should just have those people come to King's Landing. The tour thing, they could have used that to show that like she's currying favor with the people. That maybe would have been useful. So she rejects all the suitors, and she ends up ending her tour 2 months early. I didn't kind of realize that. I thought she was at King's Landing, like I said at first, and then she was like sailing off to go do something. And then we get Caraxes and Daemon showing up, and they like Top Gun style fucking buzz the tower and nearly knock her ship over. And then she goes back to King's Landing, and in my head I was like, oh, she saw her uncle, so she turned around. And it took some of the exposition for me to be like, oh no, wait a second, that was Storm's End, wasn't it? So it was a little confusing to me at first, but I probably just wasn't paying hard enough attention. So we get that. We get Daemon returning to court with the crown and the sword, and he does his little act and gives the sword up in the crown and says, "You're the only king," and yada yada yada. And then Targ bros be bros again, and we get everything kind of that is surrounding that. Viserys is kind of a dick to Alicent a little bit there. You have some girl time with Rhaenyra and Alicent, and then you have a little incest chat between Daemon and Rhaenyra. What'd you guys think?
So apparently, between a time skip, Rhaenyra and Alicent made up a little bit more, so they're girl buddies again.
Yeah, they're not completely hating each other.
Yeah, so this is very Gossip Girl.
But then, it's when she said she wanted to go see the paintings, and she's like, "Well, I'll just go alone." Like, she wasn't like, "Come with me, Alicent." And then they were talking later, so I thought that was a little weird. But
I swear, if those are the tapestries that Littlefinger gets, I'm going to be livid.
That's not show canon.
Well, it's kind of like the king. I mean, like, yes, like Rhaenyra is like the crown princess and stuff, but like Alicent still outranks her. So I would think it would be like Alicent's place to offer to go show Rhaenyra the tapestries when Viserys just shot her down like that, because he is still angry at her with cutting her hair short. But
yeah, again, like when it didn't click to me, like the whole geographical setup, until he's like, the king worked very hard to set up that tour. I'm like, of the tapestries? And then I was like, oh, wait a second, I know what happened. I'm stupid. But yeah, I think you're right. Like, and it's a weird situation where she was the princess, she's a Targaryen, and was always, above Alicent. And now it's sort of reversed, but with her still being the heir, eventually she's supposed to be queen, so Alicent should kind of mind her manners. I don't know. They're still setting up Alicent as very sympathetic, and we'll maybe talk about it in the preview for the next episode. Like, they might be changing a little bit of what happens with the dance and all that. But
I think part of what was so interesting about like that kind of set of scenes was like you have a bunch of people who kind of know what they want, but they can't get it even when they get it. So like the way Daemon like nestles his head against Viserys' neck, and it's just like you can imagine them like coming home from a night of whoring, and just being like, "Oh, bro, I love you so much," or whatever, just like, like they were talking about. But like that's not enough. Like that kind of acceptance is not enough. That like laughing with Daemon, with Viserys at Alicent's expense about like the tapestries is not enough. And like Rhaenyra at the same time kind of like wants her freedom. Like she's very, I mean, she states it very clearly to Daemon. She wants her solitude, which she views as freedom. And like her whole arc in the episode is kind of like her figuring out how to be free within the confines of her life, which is kind of fascinating. But I think then you've got Alicent, who's just like seemingly desperately unhappy and completely unable to do anything about it. And like I don't know. It was a very interesting kind of contrast between like all these people who are sort of trapped and sort of not to different degrees. I don't know.
There's the most insanely privileged people in the land, and they're all unhappy.
Money doesn't buy happiness.
No, but there's this lovely moment where like I mean obviously I only watched it once, but like I think when Rhaenyra says that like she would prefer, or she like whatever she is better than like being stuck in a castle and popping out babies, and like the camera just like sits on both of them for like a good like I don't know 10 seconds it felt like anyway, and it was just such a lovely expression of the closeness that kind of used to be there, and like the life Alicent has to live and the life that Rhaenyra is trying not to live, and the way that they both kind of empathize with each other when they're in their kind of best, when they're at their best, which they are not for most of the rest of the episode.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, awkward times. So we move on to the small council meeting after that, and we hear that Laena's going to be wed to a Braavosi, which is kind of an issue.
Son of the Sea Lord, yeah.
Sea Lord, yeah.
Yep. They don't seem as concerned. I mean, they're concerned, but it's like they don't have an immediate remedy for that. And we know where that goes, so I don't know. That feels like it's going to take some time to... I don't know, is that all going to be mostly off screen? Are we going to get like one episode of that? Like,
I think that's going to be next episode, a lot of that stuff.
It has to be. I mean, we're getting the time skip.
Because we're about to hit the time. We have to do Daemon with Laena and hopefully Vhagar, right?
Yeah.
And somehow build that up. And
then take Aemon's eye out.
That's gonna be time skip. Yeah, that's gotta be.
That's gonna be
Drift mark. The episode drift mark.
I don't think we're gonna get much of Laena. I think it's like they'll have like a moment and then time skip, but it's like, guess what? We ran away to Pentos and had children. 10 years have passed.
Right. And then
they can meet at
Daemon and Rhaenyra are together, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they laid the groundwork for that a bit, but
I was going to say one thing about the council meeting. It was interesting to see Rhaenyra sitting in on the council. She's actually sitting at the table with them, no longer, being the cupbearer. Yeah. And not like being in on it directly. Now she's there, and I mean, like, contextually, she probably doesn't have nearly the say that a lot of these guys do, but at the same time, it's a little bit more official, her place there.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he's actually making an effort to have her involved in some of this stuff now, until the dragon wakes up a little bit later. Yeah. So the secret passage in her room, like, is just straight up there, right? There's no locks on that shit. Murder Targaryens whenever you want, I guess.
Yep.
I like how Maegor specified that they put in a railing for safety.
Sorry, I just really hope that the railing came from one of those poor masons who was like, "Oh well, surely I'll use this in the future," and then murdered by Maegor in my old age.
But anyway, it's interesting that like they have intimate knowledge of the passageways that it doesn't seem like the Kingsguard necessarily has, or even Viserys sometimes. So she meets up with Daemon and they have their night on the town. We get to see some pyromancers, pretty cool. I guess this is how you seduce your niece. They go to a play, and then we get this terrible cut when they get to the pleasure house between like the shit going on at the pleasure house, and you get like writhing Viserys, and it was all very dark, thankfully.
Awful.
Plus filled back and all.
Yeah, and just the fact that like she gets woken up in the middle of the night, and she's like, "It's late," and the servant's like, "Yeah, the king has a boner. Go tend to it."
Yeah, that scene was very like, ugh.
Yeah, It's unfortunate.
But I think, like Michal said earlier, the brothel scenes, like stuff is being shot a lot differently. And like they said after the episode, like they clearly were trying to figure out like how do we present this from Rhaenyra's point of view, because she is sort of the innocent girl in a way. Like she's into it, like she's like down to have a good time, but like she's not experienced any of this stuff, so it's all kind of wild to her. I thought they did a good job.
I mean, comparing that to like season 1, where it was sort of like Daemon's rogue court in or not season 1, but episode 1, the brothel was like, it was Daemon's rogue court of just like married pirate men, basically, and then this is, very.
It's like moonlight makeout,
I was just waiting for a Euphoria, like not illusion.
Hey girl,
but,
hey, take this pill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drop some dragon fire with me, girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean it's like uncomfortable, but at the same time, I thought it was well shot and it conveyed what it needed to convey. But very uncomfortable. I hope no one watched this with their parents.
It was like, I mean, it's an excellent contrast, because at least it's like she's having fun, like it's exciting for her to kind of like, I don't know, like have this sexual awakening compared to what Alicent's having to go through. It's like it's night and day compared to like the brothel scenes in GOT, where people were like giving exposition while getting pounded. I prefer this compared to like past brothel scenes we've gotten.
Play with her arse.
Yeah, at least this is like character stuff, like.
Yeah.
Let me explain my backstory.
Show don't tell, but it is actually showing us Rhaenyra's character through how she's responding to this, as opposed to us being bombarded with information.
Yeah, and it makes it clear that she was down for this, and Daemon was just like, no, I can't do it, because he was doing it for the wrong reasons. I mean, if you're going to seduce your niece, it shouldn't be to fuck over your brother, right?
His impotence is such a good choice for the character, because this is like the second sex scene he's had where he's lost his boner, and it's just like, as soon as he gets something that he wants, it doesn't leave him satisfied. And it's, like, that is the entire character, is like he doesn't, like, he wants everything, but when he has it, it's like it does nothing for him. I can't stop thinking about Michal saying he has ADHD. I'm like, that makes so much sense.
I stand by it.
Yeah, the Maester didn't have anything for that.
I liked it. I thought it made his character a tad more complex, because that scene, it reads really rough for him as a person until that part, and even then, it still feels pretty gross if you put it in like the context of what he's doing. So I thought it helped him be more gray than like the kind of unmitigated asshole that we know him as.
Did you see the after the episode where they talked about it?
I did not. I tend not to care about those.
Yeah, I watched it.
They gave like kind of two interpretations, which is that he feels there's an element of guilt because he's like screwing over his family, but also he's like he doesn't like that she's into it. Like, he wanted to have the control in that situation, and the fact that she responds eagerly like is off-putting for him. It's like, oh shit, like
not what I expected.
Yeah, it's like, this is actually too real.
1 star.
Both of those are
Also,
really
like
sad.
kind of like a lot of like their chemistry comes from Rhaenyra challenging him, right? So I think like her being like that into it is like, that's kind of why, right? He's not into it.
Yeah, he's not looking for that at the moment. He hates himself too much.
It's interesting. I mean, frankly, I didn't realize that he was impotent in that scene. I thought he had kind of had second thoughts.
I mean, that's what they say.
I mean,
I like that twist.
I think it's both.
I like that. It actually makes the whole thing even more complicated, because it's like, well, he didn't, but he was gonna, and like that, that adds a whole bunch of more layers to the matter. But yeah, I kind of wonder if he was testing her, like was it a little bit of like a, are you actually like my ally in this life, in the, if I'm coming back to court and we're really gonna do this like big happy circular family tree Targaryen family, like, is it you and me against the High Towers and somewhat Viserys? Like, I don't know. I almost wonder if there was more of a testing element than just a sexual element.
I think part of him is, and he also has issues of like expecting abandonment and stuff, right? So like, if I mean that's part of it too, because I think like, yeah, if she responds and is like, hey, yeah, great, he's like, oh no, I can't trust this. I don't know what's going on here. This is not what I expected. Like I think sort of flows line with what you're saying. Like he gets what he wants, and then he's like, oh no, like he doesn't know how to handle it.
Certainly
that's Daemon in a nutshell, right? Gets what he wants and doesn't know how to handle it. He can't even deal with Missaria.
And that should have been fairly straightforward for him. Yeah. Instead he went to war. So can we move on to the highlight of the episode?
Kristen Cole.
Rhaenyra just decided that tonight's the night, and if she can't get it at the pleasure house, she's going to look a little closer to home. She invites her shining knight into the bedchamber.
And yet further from home, in another sense.
Right.
At least genetically.
That's right. Well, probably better for her. She sneaks back home just fine. After, I guess they had that little encounter with the Watchman too. We didn't mention that, but everybody's safe. Everybody's fine.
Or Harwin?
Which is great because it, like, you can understand how, like, where the rumor of them having slept together might have come from. Like in the book, like that's a possible thread, is like she goes to Kristen Cole, he rejects her, and then she goes to Harwin Strong. It's like he's part of the interwoven threads of this evening in a way that could lead to stories later.
And I also love how later on she points out, like, well, whoever said this is treason. Like, you're like, wait, what? If anyone is challenging my virtue, that's treason.
Rhaenyra is terrifying. Shit. We'll get to it, but I just have to say, I was actually quite intimidated by her. Basically, the second she loses her virginity, she like levels up in battle.
That's a good way to put it.
She gaslights the shit out of Alicent.
Not exactly. She swore this wasn't Daemon.
She's sort of telling the truth, like, but then she also says she has her virtue. But she's like, oh yeah, Daemon, he never touched me. And you're like, well, yeah, that's true.
To go back to the Kristen Cole scene, I feel bad for the guy in this scene, and because like there's an element of non-consent here, because it's like she's the princess, he can't really say no, and she's put him in a position where it's like,
right,
like he could be killed for this, like gelded, sent to the wall, like the consequences for this for him are awful. And it's like when he puts his white cloak on the floor, it's like I understand how this could fester for him, like really quickly.
I didn't think about that. He's no Luckamore the Lusty. So.
Well, not even that. It's like he was like, this is something he took pride in, is he's the Kingsguard. And now it's like she's soiled that for him. Like he can't look at himself the same way. And it's
so we're saying Kristen Cole did nothing wrong, justified.
No, not at all. I mean, like in the book, he's more of a scumbag, but like here, I kind of like we shall see where the story goes. But in this situation, I'm like, no, he's like I feel worse for him in that circumstance than.
Yeah, you can see him. You can see him or you can see how he would wonder going forward. Like, is she just going to hold this over my head, or are we just going to pretend this never happened, and she's never going to use this against me or not.
Yeah. Well, and also like if he says no, she can say he tried. Like that. I think that's where a lot of the non-consent comes from. Like he's
right. Well, she can say that at any time anyway. I mean, she has all the power no matter what. And I mean, most of these relationships, it's written like the knight's cool with it, and he's in. This is what they want. And like I don't know, but you are right. I mean, there's definitely that element there But I
There's
think
also
the show is trying really hard to set up Kristen Cole and Alicent as being somewhat sympathetic. My guess is the showrunners, like when they plotted this, looked at it and said, "Well, everyone's going to be Team Rhaenyra, right?" And then we'll have stuff that happens later on that will question that. But it seems like they're like, well, we got to make sure that Kristen Cole and Alicent seem like, you know, someone that like at least some of the viewers can get behind. So, but we're gonna get the, you know, his betrayal by the end of the season. So that's gonna, I don't know. After that, there's not a lot of redemption for him. Although maybe they'll keep going this way. I don't know.
It's interesting. I kind of, I don't know. It's so interesting how to read that scene. Like, is there that lack of consent, or is this something that he's wanted? You know, like, he definitely doesn't seem to anticipate it. And frankly, it was like unbelievably hilarious when she just like, he puts her to bed and then she like a couple hours later runs up and like a men's shirt. It's just like, good night, you know. But like, there were two things about that scene that kind of stuck out to me. One is like the very deliberate shot of him like laying his cloak, the white cloak, on a chair, and the other was like just how. So when Alicent is being besexed by Viserys, like obviously there's a ritual to it, you know, like she knows when she has to smile, she knows when she, you know, doesn't have to because he's not paying attention. But there's a scene when Rhaenyra and Kristen Cole are undressing, when they're both just undoing their laces, like very like methodically, and it's like the least sexy thing. Like they're just like taking their shoes off, and it was so interesting to me that it was because when they do actually have sex, it is quite erotic, and it seems quite passionate. So to lead into it with that kind of just like, dum, here's what we do, you know, like not trying to undress sexily or anything, just like getting down to it. I don't know. It was very interesting the way the whole thing was
Did they
framed.
intend the shots to just build the anticipation, or I wasn't feeling it if that was the intention?
I thought it was to like show how like reverently he even treats his armor and like the way that he feels about it. I thought it was all about his feelings towards these things. Like at first it's definitely her, right, coaxing him by taking off the like greaves, or gauntlets. And then it starts to become like a both of them thing where he's taking off stuff. And the first thing I think that we see that he takes off himself is the white cloak, and then we get that like heavy like hand on there, like, am I really gonna do this? I think I wanted to point out is like there's also the fact that this dude is relatively low born. Like he's not some high knight of the Kingsguard that has a lot of glory attached to his name already. He's relatively unknown, and most of his notoriety comes from dealing with Rhaenyra.
Yeah, he had combat experience, though. Don't forget. I mean, show Kristen Cole up to this point has done nothing wrong. He's been the perfect gentleman and knight, right?
Yeah.
And even here, you could say, did he do anything wrong? So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they use this to kind of spiral things between them later on.
I mean, he's gonna stir up some shit at the wedding, and like that might be where they just have him kill Laena's boyfriend, like during the wedding next episode.
Oh, I could see that.
So we'll see.
That would be perfect.
I wonder how that's gonna. I think Daemon and Kristen might be a little bit of a wild card thrown into that wedding if he shows up, perhaps because of the Laena stuff. But I'm not sure. We'll have to
Right.
see.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you could meet Laena as well.
I think his like bronze bitch wife is probably gonna like fall off her horse in the first few minutes, and he's like, "Oh, coming back home."
Might give her a gentle push. Like,
I'm a free agent.
Go home and be like, well, you know, I am free to follow my heart.
Horse suspiciously has dragon bite wounds.
On that note, we should move forward here with the episode. So after all of that, obviously, Daemon's hungover, and Otto is a hell of a snitch, and Viserys finally is like, "What the fuck?" He's not having any of it, and then we get the conversation between the princess and the queen in the Godswood, with everything kind of going on there, and her denials and
book title.
That's right. We have to say it at least once. Yeah. So it seems Alicent believes her, and she's mostly telling the truth. And then Daemon doesn't bother to denying that shit, and he is sent away because he's like, "Yeah, just she's obviously soiled, man. Just give her to me." But he knows he didn't do anything. His own worst enemy, as usual.
That's
Yeah, and
an
then
interesting part of Daemon's character too, right? Like he doesn't seem to be able to defend himself in front of Viserys. Like he leans into the worst assumptions about him, like whether or not they're true. We still don't know if he said the Air for the Day thing, but we know he didn't actually sleep with Rhaenyra.
Like he's a bit masochistic here.
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting. It's like he can't deal with being reliant on Viserys, but he also like desperately needs it.
I'm such a rogue.
It'll be interesting once Viserys like dies. Like it's so interesting how he's like a total wreck, but he's also the linchpin that's motivating so many of these people. And once that's gone, it'll be really interesting to see how everybody sort of spirals.
Yeah,
So
I mean, being the black
sheep
of the family is like a real role people take on and let it like control them.
Right, right.
He can't deal with anyone having power over him, and so if he denies it, then it means that he's admitting that Viserys, like, I don't know, can like do something to him. Like he's like, no, I have to have the verbal advantage in this fight.
I'm giving my crown to you over my own free will.
Yeah.
So you guys tell me if this is what they said after the episode. You can tell me if this reads or not, because I wasn't sure it entirely did. Like when he first comes back, they're like Targ bros again. They're like, "Fuck off, Alicent." It's like seems like they're gonna go. They're gonna go down to the brothels and hang out. It seems like they're doing well. But after the episode, basically what they said was like, well, he comes back, but it's all a lie. Everything is just designed to do this to Rhaenyra and fuck over Viserys. That was like his whole intention coming back. And I'm like, I don't know. Like he seemed pretty happy when they were hanging out. Like he wants that.
I think what they said is that people like start to they start to believe the best of him, and then he just lets them down. Like it's like, oh yeah, you're still the same person you always were. Like you haven't changed at all.
Yeah, and even though he doesn't commit the act, he still takes the opportunity to let it sink in to his brother, right? To let his brother believe it and fuck him over with it. Yeah.
I think it's interesting how there's a couple points where they sort of try to make them seem like their paths in life carried them different places more than like an inherent difference in who they were. Like they do say, yeah, like Viserys does say he's not the same warrior Daemon is, but I think the way there's a couple times they're painted as sort of like running around King's Landing together as youths and kind of having those brotherly moments, and you just sort of do feel like it's the responsibility Viserys bears more than it is anything else that makes them such different people.
I also like the focus we got on Balon in this chapter and how like his death affected the two of them, and like his influence on both of them. It looks like, and then later on with the Otto stuff, we got more of that.
Yeah, I mean it was 3 years, but 5 days is fine for the show. It's fine.
It took Viserys how long to figure out that Otto was just like grasping for his own advancement. Like,
I mean,
because like I read the second episode as like Alice, right? Because like, right, he had like Alicent go seduce Viserys before he announced that he would marry her, right? So like, what did he think that was? And just like, if it's just like, like, right, because he seems to like understand that like, yes, everyone has their interests to a certain degree, but like, like from all the like, just like frankly pathetic like pushing he did last episode, it's just like now you figured it out. I don't know. Obviously, it had to happen at some point.
I think Viserys feels like really like the relationship was damaged. I like when the hunt happened and he came to him with the Aegon suggestion. I think it like reeked of him so much of like an ill thought out like push for power, that it actually seriously damaged their his like what do you call it, his trust in his judgment. And then we get more of it in that, like, I mean, off the bat he's like, no, that's not Rhaenyra, she wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
And even if it is, like, this is the point, is even if it is, it doesn't matter, bro. You're the hand of the king and you need to protect my family. Like, if you're like, oh no, let's let this rumor fly so that you can name Aegon. He's like, no, that's not gonna fucking happen. Like, I was half expecting him to be like, if I hear anybody say this, I'm gonna assume it's from you.
Yeah.
He's not doing his job. He's not doing his job.
Otto
I mean,
forgot
Otto's an institution too. I think it's like, because I mean, he was hand when Jaehaerys was king, and it's like, I don't know. I feel like this guy's just been around so long that the assumption that he's he does his job. I mean, he's fucking up, but he's also like been doing his job for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
He's got a lot of
it
power.
has been like a year since the hunt, if I have that correctly.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
also,
But we don't
I think also-
we don't have really like I think like maybe if we just like had a line of dialogue for like how like he like has been like relying on Otto less in the year, maybe that would have done it for me.
Yeah, maybe
I
a
think-
line about him trusting other advisors, Lionel, Tyland, people like that. Or
Yeah,
Beesbury, the Chad.
To Adam's point earlier about Rhaenyra getting some wins, I think also I'd really kind of like to see Otto get some losses a little more visibly. Like, there's no way everyone likes him, right? Like, when Tywin did this 200 years later, everyone fucking couldn't stand the guy. Like, by a certain point, or a lot of people couldn't, at least. Like, you can't sit at the king's right hand for decades and not piss off a lot of lords.
Yeah, he's got his
You
allies.
could have had a turn at the you could have had a line of dialogue at the hunt about how the High Towers are rising above their station, right? And then just like, because just like how like we see the nucleus of the Greens as a anti-Daemon faction, we could see the nucleus of the Blacks as an anti-Hightower faction.
Right, that would
didn't
start giving
decide
you
to do
something
that.
to build on. Yeah,
Right.
that would be good.
We might see that actually with Lionel in the next episode.
Yeah, early days.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we've reached that point.
What is
Dagger
the
chat.
point? Oh.
Oh my god.
Wait, real quick. Before that, what did you make of the Massaria scene? Because that. The line about her being his protector, I'm like, is she just talking about giving him a bed for the evening? Because she sold him out, right? Like, or
no, I don't think it's. I think she's. I mean,
I don't think that was her. It was just a little.
Reporters, but not. She's not the spy.
I don't necessarily agree, because Otto says it came from the White Worm.
White Worm, yeah. I was gonna just.
Yeah, the little boy says Otto.
At first, when Otto goes out to meet and sees that kid, I was like, "Oh, it's the Blackwood kid again." was like, oh no, wait a second, who is this? It's like one
Oh,
of
he
his
gets
like
around,
little
that kid.
birds.
Is he the Podrick of this generation?
He also
It's
says,
like this kid came all the way here because he's not going to be denied.
in that same chat that comes afterwards with Viserys, he says this informant has given me like good information before.
Right,
So I have to
it's
wonder,
a reliable
like,
source.
yeah, if Miss Arya has come to him with info before about Daemon and his doings when it suits her.
Mhm.
Yeah, because she sends the message, but I guess that line about being his protector. Because at first I thought like she was going to send a message that like implicated somebody else had slept with Rhaenyra to protect him, but then that didn't happen. So I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, lady. Like,
I think it's just literally preventing him from getting stabbed right in the middle of the streets while drunk.
Yeah, I mean, like she drug him out and gave him somewhere to kind of sleep it off. So we could be reading into it too much. I don't know.
I also think it's very possible that it's her feeling self-serving. She doesn't want to be replaced, and it's if he's marrying a queen to be or princess to be, it causes maybe issues. She will get put aside.
sure.
Right.
Sorry about that. Dagger talk.
Right. The dagger. So, guys, this dagger holds a secret, one that only the fire can reveal.
One dagger to rule them all.
That's right.
One prince to find them.
So this is where these two shows airing together. This is the connection point.
Can I pitch a theory?
Yeah, please do.
I think that it's not. I'm not totally sure which sword, but let's say it's Blackfire because Blackfire is famously missing in Song of Ice and Fire, and is not in Game of Thrones. I kind of think that that's whatever's going on with this dagger is going on with either Blackfire or maybe the Dane sword, because like that's what's going to be used. I think the showrunners were like, okay, we have this thing that we know killed the Night King, so we're going to explain why it did and like why it was supposed to. And there is a sword in the book series that is supposed to do that. That is definitely not the Cat's Paw dagger.
Right.
Because, yeah. So I think it's either Blackfire or Dawn.
Blackfire I could definitely see.
Speaking of Blackfire, did anyone notice the red dragon on one of the quartered arms on a surcoat?
No.
Yeah,
Blackfires are
no,
black,
but like
yeah.
obviously it's not the symbol, or it doesn't have the same meaning it does in this portion of the timeline. But like, like if we're pointing out all the black dragon sigils everywhere.
Oh,
It's been
yeah,
in the
there's
background
been
a few times. Like the Huntmaster in the Hunt last episode had one too.
Yeah, and the tourney guy, like the tourney crier guy in the first episode.
Yeah.
I was like, his Targaryen bastard power is loud talking.
Yeah, the drums that they were using were Blackfire brand drums.
Maybe it's just like a fun Easter egg from the the set costume department.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the same like it doesn't mean what it would mean in the main series or Duncan Egg.
We don't have any confirmation in show canon that reversing the arms is what bastards do. So it's cool. Otherwise, we'd have John. John would have walked around with a reverse
Black direwolves.
Ooh, white direwolf on a gray field.
Which would be
that's the
should be interesting because he has Ghost.
Isn't that the Greystark sigil? Those dudes that got ganked.
That's a sunburst. That's a sunburst. What are you talking? Unbelievable.
No, that's the Karstark
sigil. Some trivia. You said Karstark.
No, I said Greystark.
Oh, they're dead. Like hundreds of years dead.
Yeah, it's still interesting.
Well, no one's ever used symbols that were hundreds of years old because they thought they were cool. Anyway.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah. So anyway, the dagger aside, this was one of our better scenes of the episode with Viserys and Rhaenyra here. And she just straight calls him out on a lot of his shit, which leads to him stripping Otto and putting him in his place. But it's a good conversation where he finally, he kings up a little bit and is like, "Look, here's who you're marrying. We're done with this shit." And she's like, "Okay, well, you handle your shit." I'm like, "Okay, fine. We'll both handle our shit."
Yeah, I feel like that's my takeaway from the entire scene. I'd completely ignored the dagger thing. It was just a non-thing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, unless the show actually goes much further with this dagger thing and the prophecies and all of that, I'm just going to
shooting flame out of it or something.
Yeah, I'm just going to assume this is all just plot devices to get to actual important things that this show cares about, because none of the Song of Ice and Fire stuff matters in Dance of Dragons.
Yeah, Katie, I think my opinions about the dagger are in fact closer to your own. It's just like, if they keep belaboring the point, I think it's kind of like, I'm not sure how I will feel about that, but if this is the route they're going.
It's not a thing that can pay off in this series, so it is somewhat tedious.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh yeah, remember guys,
theory,
the apocalypse is coming.
Yeah, in theory, I like it because it adds like a sense of like, it will add like to Rhaenyra's motivations of like, Viserys is, or like, like the king is the one who told me about this, and I need to be like queen to see this through. But it's like that's the only like payoff I can find, and I find it a bit much for that.
Well, I do think one of the interesting elements, and I think I'm just blatantly stealing this from History of Westeros, but they've like mentioned that it's interesting in the context of this prophecy that the Targaryens tend to freak out every time winter comes, and like I think that does happen at least once during the dance, and that might be kind of an interesting motivation, because like when winter comes, they're like, this is it,
right? It's not just that they're cold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, I like the right. No, like I like the the more subtler like things in Fire and Blood that hint towards like at least certain Targaryens knowing. Like, right, I like like Jaehaerys and Alicent's interest in the Wall, right? But for it to be so front and center, I'm not sure how I feel about. I think again, like Katie, my opinion is much closer to yours than I think like like pure frothing nerd rage, which I respect, but.
Well, yeah, the prophecy shit is fine. It's just the fact that this like stupid instrument that like they implied in the original series that it was the exact dagger that created the the others in the first place, and so that's why it's the thing that kills them in the end. And the fact that it's managed to stay through this whole thing and hasn't got lost. It's the same concept of the horn.
Oh, okay. I didn't watch the show after season 4, or the Throne show. So, yeah, I guess that's why.
The show just makes the dagger up to be this. It just gets kind of ridiculous, and you're like, whatever. And now they're sort of doing the same thing here, so it just brings up. It's like peeling the scab off again. It's not the end of the world. I mean, as long as the thing doesn't light up like a lightsaber or some shit, it'll be fine. But
right, yeah, no, I'm ignoring it.
Well, we should finish up with the final scene of the Maester arriving with his morning after potion.
Go for it.
If we have anything to say about that.
I thought it was a great ending to it.
I thought it was abrupt, like the credits rolled. I expected a bit more, but like you're like, oh shit.
I really liked it. It felt like Viserys was just like, all right, take this. And anyway.
You can read it a lot of ways. It's just like, did he actually like believe her, and how's she gonna take that, or is it just like go have your fun, but be safe?
Shake your ass, but watch yourself.
I think if it was meant to be like have your fun but be safe, that probably Melos would not have been the one to bring it. I feel like having a crusty old man hand it to you, even though he could have just brewed it and had anyone else bring it. Having him hand it to her is very much a sign of like I don't know, felt very much like a message about the world that they live in, and that she can't be doing that stuff, according to Viserys.
It feels
It's
like
extremely privileged information, right? Like, if it's treason to even suggest that the heir is not a virgin, then, like, anyone who knows that she likely isn't, is in possession of some very, very delicate information.
Yeah, just some light treason. Yeah, I don't know. Does she take it?
She certainly doesn't with Breakbones.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Can we
so
talk about him
I
making
wonder if they would
Tormund face?
change. They're going to change her children.
He
Him making what?
makes Tormund face, like when Tormund sees
The
Brienne.
last episode.
Oh yeah, she
It's
comes back from that
literally-
hunt covered in blood. He's like, oh my god.
It is
Hell
the
yeah.
exact face. Bring me the big woman. Bring me the blonde woman. Sorry.
I mean, she doesn't need to take
Fair
the
enough.
moon tea with Harwin because she's married by that point. So
Well, yeah, that brings up the whole like how they'll need to do it with the casting. It's just like, like if they like if they'll even have like a line of just being like, like or like when like, Jace is born, of just like he doesn't really, or he looks very light for, like he like really does not look like Laenor at all, and like like
That line's in the books. Allison says, "Keep trying. Maybe you'll have one that looks like you."
well, sure, but now it's just going to be even more obvious, right?
Yeah, we talked about this last episode where it's like Rhaenyra does not pop out a black child.
right, yeah,
How are you
they
going
have black hair and white skin. It ain't gonna look like anything else.
We know the actors already. They sure aren't black.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And
It'll
yeah,
be-
you compare them with Daemon's like twins, who very much look like Lena. And it's just like, well,
I also
Need some
is it
exposition.
possible that Rhaenyra's first child will actually be Cole's? Is that
Right? Does she take it or not?
yeah?
That's what I was just thinking, is that they're going to change some of like how this happens. Like maybe she marries Laenor so quick, and then the kid's Cole's, but then that would kind of fuck everything else up.
I
know.
don't. Yeah,
I don't think
Um,
so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what's the point of
mean-
introducing Harwin Strong if that's how it goes, Because he's a really tertiary character. Like, if they were just going to make her children be Kristen Coles, like they could have cut Harwin entirely.
No, not all of them. I guess the point might be if Kristen Cole is like, is this kid mine? And it's like,
God, that would make him way
mean-
more of an asshole if you really think about it.
I don't think.
Oh yeah.
He
Oh, yeah,
wants
she-
custody of the
she took
dragon
the
every other
movie.
weekend.
I mean, yeah, probably not, but it did occur to me since we don't see her take it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and we will reconvene next week for I think it's the final episode pre-time skip, we assume, right? It's called "We Light the Way," which is interesting if Hightower's out of the way, but I guess he'll still be around at least for a bit, even though he's been stripped. So, yep. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you then.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Probably. Sorry, somebody's coughing. Sorry, you're gonna have to edit this. I love not being the editor.
Fire is the champion of House Targaryen.
People unironically like Starship Troopers, so
Well, I mean, I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say, kill them all.